So, in the last session we were looking at generic strategies, the overall cost leadership, differentiation and focus. We took the examples of two American companies, one is Delta Airlines, the other is the iOmega Corporation, to illustrate these strategies. Then we have as a form of strategy mergers and joint ventures. This has now become the order of the day. If you really see what is happening in the retail market also, there were so many small players. These small players, many of them have joined together. This was happening in the 80s also, when Reliance entered the market. Reliance was then Vimal. Okay. So, when Vimal entered into the textile market, there existed Garden, not by name Garden, but there existed number of small units which were putting out sarees. So, when Vimal entered the market in the 80s with reference to this sarees market, and it really created a commotion in this sarees market. Because of the terrific financial backing the Vimal company had, that is Mukesh, the Dhirubhai Ambani's company at that point of time. Dhirubhai Ambani was having this financial muscle. So, most of these small and medium enterprises could not stand to this onslaught of Vimal in the market. So, what did they do? Most of these units in Ahmedabad, that is mainly in Gujarat, they merged together and formed a unit, a composite type of a unit to give competition to Vimal. They came out with the product Garden. So, the Garden sarees and designs proved to be a real hit in the market, in spite of Vimal being there using at that point of time cinema heroines for promoting their product, all those types of things, whereas Garden was not using this type of high profile figures, but at the same time was able to capture or hold on to its market share. Okay. Now, turn to the present day scenario. If you turn to the present day scenario, you look at these malls screening different films and all that. What is the latest which is happening? We find that two cinema malls have joined together to form or merge together to form a very strong unit in this market to give effective competition to the players who might come into the market, or who are already in the market, or who might come into the market later on. So, we will be dealing with mergers and joint ventures when we go along in more detail. The next type of strategy that you can think of is the turnaround strategies. What is this turnaround strategies? Turnaround, as you can see, something has gone wrong with the company and that company needs to be turned around in order to see that it is able to stand on its feet in the market. There are two types of turnarounds possible. One is an entrepreneurial turnaround, another is an efficiency turnaround. What is this entrepreneurial turnaround? no better example that of Sylvania Lakshman, a highly entrepreneurial turnaround, made this company, this electric bulb manufacturing company at that point of time, to turn around and become a profit making venture. And what is this? What is this efficiency turnaround? This efficiency turnaround is where you look into the different cost divisions of the company and you try to find out how these divisions are working, whether cost cutting is possible. If cost cutting is not possible, you look into all the divisions of the company to find out whether efficiency can be increased. So, these types of efficiency turnaround, it is happening almost on a continuous basis in most of the organizations in the country today, most predominantly in the automotive industry, because you have to compete with a number of players in the market. When you have to compete with a number of players in the market, you have to offer to the market a cost efficient product. So, whether it is the two-wheeler market or whether it is the four-wheeler market, this is the present day scenario in the country today. So, it's a highly competitive market. When it is a highly competitive market, well, all sorts of strategies have to be adopted to keep the company afloat in the market. Not only afloat in the market, but also to make an impact in the market with respect to sales. The next strategy that we look at is a business unit strategy and a corporate strategy. As you can see, what is a business unit strategy? A business unit strategy is the strategy that you are considering for a particular business unit of the company. Take for example, the ITI, that is the Indian Telephone Industries. Defense production is a business unit. For this defense production, what is the type of strategy you would like to have? Contrast with the corporate strategy. What is this corporate strategy? The corporate strategy is looking at all the divisions of the company, all the units. Suppose you say, I am able to look at my company in the form of 6 business units. So, corporate strategy looks at the strategy of all the 6 business units. Suppose it is say x1 to x6, but if you summate x1, x2, x6 up to x6, it may not give the corporate strategy. Kindly note that summation may not necessarily result with a corporate strategy. Okay. So, when we go along, we discuss this also in the coming sessions. So, essentially these are the types of strategies you have to look at with respect to organizations. One is the growth strategy. In the growth strategy, we looked at 6 examples. The second is the dependency reduction strategy. We again looked at 6 examples. Then we looked at vertical integration strategies. It can be backward or forward. Then we also said there is a risk in this of loss of flexibility. Then we looked at the generic strategies essentially given by Porter on overall cost leadership, differentiation and focus. Then the mergers and joint ventures, turnaround strategy, can be entrepreneurial or efficiency, and business unit strategy and corporate strategy. Then we move along. So, when we move along to this next to this thing, we are going to have, suppose you look at any organization, any strategy, whether it is a business unit strategy or a corporate strategy, it will always be coming in your mind whether the strategy that you are using for the business unit, is it a winning strategy or not. So, there should be some tests available to the person, that is the strategic planning man, to find out whether his strategy will succeed in the marketplace or not. So, these are called tests of a winning strategy. The tests of a winning strategy are basically three. What are these three? Goodness of fit test. What do you do in this goodness of fit test? Match to industry and competitive condition, opportunities and threats. In other words, when you are looking at a winning strategy, an important point that comes out is you should do a rigorous business landscape analysis. This business landscape analysis should be very rigorous. You should take into account almost all the points which are existing in the external environment and the internal environment. Then the second one is tailored to company strengths and weaknesses, competencies and capabilities. So, whenever you formulate a strategy, you should be reasonably sure that this strategy can be executed with the type of resources that you have in the company. If you are deficient yourself, then the strategy is not going to get going in the marketplace. So, you will have more problems than solutions. Then what is the competitive advantage test? It leads to sustainable competitive advantage. No better example than that of the Gillette company's Mash 3 blade. What is this Mash 3 blade? It is a triple blade technology, and this triple blade technology, it has sustained itself in the marketplace for a long number of years. In spite of so many players who were there in the market, when this triple blade technology was introduced, so many other players also came into the market. Some of them said we will give a 5 blade technology, one of them said we will give a 7 blade technology. With all that, this 3 blade technology of Mash 3 is the market leader even to this day. So, this is what is called the competitive advantage that the company has obtained by coming out with this type of a product which has proved itself in the marketplace. So, the third one is the performance test. What is this performance test? It boosts profitability and competitive strength and long term position. So, if you are having competitive advantage in the marketplace, there is a very good possibility that the performance of the company also gets reflected in better performance, increased profitability, and also having a competitive strength and long term position in the marketplace. So, these are the tests of a winning strategy that the strategic planner is always concerned with. This strategic planning job and the marketing planning job in an organization, kindly note, are highly strenuous exercises. It is not a simple exercise, because you have to take into account so many factors, so many scenarios. Sometimes the scenarios are visible to you, sometimes the scenarios are not even visible to you. So, when they are not even visible to you, how do you really succeed in the market? So, many times people compare all this with the type of astrology predictions. Okay. Suppose what is this? An astrologer predicts your fate or whatever. Okay. Suppose it does not turn out that whatever he has predicted has not come true, that is he predicted something, what happened was something totally different. So, the astrologer takes umbrage or umbrage in one sentence before telling your before analyzing your horoscope. What is that? A good astrologer should always do. What is this? Palani grahacharena suchayanti manishinah kovaktaaratamyasya vidhi samvinaha. What is that? He is saying, as an astrologer, I am seeing your horoscope and analyzing the movement of the planets and forecasting the type of events that might happen in the coming years. Suppose it does not happen, then what is it? It is the destiny, it is not in my hands. Kovaktaaratamyasya vidhi samvinaha. Okay. So, in the case of the company, what is going to happen? Suppose the strategy were to fail, then the impact on the company can be quite tumultuous. So, many times you find that when your strategic planning process has got a hit, many heads might roll in the organization. So, some people might really look for other openings in other organizations. So, they will not be talking about this exercise for a number of years, but they will always be talking about that exercise which was a success in the marketplace throughout their lifetime. Okay, fine. This is what really happens with respect to organizations. Now, we look at management decisions. What could be the type of management decisions that you have? You could have management decisions under 3 heads. One could be strategic, second is operating, third is administrative. So, what is this strategic decisions? It is the interface between the organization and the external environment. So, it involves allocation of total resources, it does not happen frequently, infrequent. Then what is this operating decisions? Looking at resource conversion, that is how do you convert your resources into products? What is the type of administrative decisions? You are looking at facilitative decisions. So, some facilitative measures for employee welfare or employee growth, all those types of things coming under this category. So, in fact, these administrative decisions, if you look at it, it was mainly created so that it can help the employee. So, you can make a small contrast with this. You had in our country the great engineer by name Sir M. Vishveshwaraya. So, he was the Diwan of Mysore. So, you can contrast this with the present day. So, at that point of time, people were mostly interested in getting into government jobs. The scenario is different now. Okay. So, and for getting into government jobs, they had to get good merit, that is they should, at that point of time you had a first class, you had a second class, you had a third class and you had a pass class also, that is they used to call it some many times some, as I remember, some ETKT, something like that. So, when he was the Diwan of Mysore, one particular case came up where the person who had applied for the job, Sir M. V. was a great civil engineer. So, the person who had applied for the job was none other than the nephew of Sir M. V. and he had only a pass class in the what do you call uh, diploma in engineering or whatever it is at that point of time. So, when it came to Sir M.V.'s notice, he said this person should not be recruited. Okay. So, then there was not so much of competition, jobs were there under the Maharaja's time. So, that is Nalvadi Krishnaraj Odiyar's time in Karnataka. So, this is then the file went up to the Maharaja. When the file went up to the Maharaja, the persons who took the file to the Maharaja told Maharaja that he is Sir M.V.'s nephew. So, without writing anything, Maharaja approached Sir M.V. and said, after all, he is your nephew, that is your sister's son. Why don't you give him the job? We have got jobs in the state. Then Sir M.V. replied, Maharaja, suppose you prefer this candidate, then you are really depriving a deserving candidate of a job in the government service. Now, compare and contrast this with the present day, when you have a clamor for reservation. Okay. So, this is what can be a good administrative decision, where you facilitate an organization by your informed decision making, so that the organization will benefit in the long run. So, if you really look at it, once the same reservations once introduced after the independence, no government is able to touch the reservation. It is in fact going up and up only, it is not coming down, kindly note that. So, these are the types of things which can happen. So, contrast it with what was happening in the Maharaja's time and the present day with respect to the state of Karnataka. So, organization success or failure in the long run depends upon strategic decisions. So, that is upon doing the right things rather than upon doing things right. No better example than that of a cricket match. You might have set the field in the best possible manner, but your bowler might bowl not to your field, but in his own way, which may be thrashed. A T20 match is a very good example of this. Okay, you will have balls going in all directions in the field, most of the times the balls clearing the field. So, the blood pressure of the captains will be going up and down. Okay. So, this is one of the things which can happen even in organizations as well. So, you thought that you are doing the right, you are doing your things right. Oh, I have put all the blocks in order, but why I am not getting the right, but you are not doing the right thing. So, the right strategy is what is required, not upon doing things right. So, if you look at these things, this can give you an idea of comparison of operating and strategic decisions. So, what is this comparison of operating and strategic decisions? If you really see, suppose you have an operating decision, this I have put it into 4 compartments. This is taken from a well known source. Okay. So, this is from this book by Trago and Zimmerman on the top management strategy. So, what does this first block or the first compartment tell you? The first compartment tells clear strategy and effective operations have contributed to success in the past and will contribute to success in the future. Quite easily understandable. Clear strategy and effective operations, they have contributed to success in the past and will contribute to success in the future. What is the second one? The second one is unclear strategy, but effective operations. So, you may not be having the right strategy, but you may be having effective operations, have contributed to success in the past, but success in the future is doubtful. What is this? This is something again in the present day competitive market. In the present day competitive market, if you thought that earlier I was having effective operations and I was very successful in the market with, even though I did not have the right strategy, it may not work in the present day marketplace. Best example for this is a well known bakery in Bangalore. It was, even today it is one of the best bakeries in Bangalore. But what is happening in the present day scenario? The present day scenario is the bakery is having effective operations. People, though Bangalore has developed by leaps and bounds over the years, still people come to that bakery for the taste of his product. This Iyengar's bakery in Vishweshwarapuram in Bangalore has made a mark for itself. Okay. So, known as the VB bakery. Many times what is the present day scenario? The present day scenario is there is a cutthroat competition in this bakery market. You have bakeries spread all over Bangalore and many of them coming out with good products also. So, when many of them are coming out with good tasty products, this bakery, which was a pioneer, it really got a hit. Why did it get a hit? Because it was sticking on to its old products, okay, products which were time tested fine, but here is a competition which is coming out with new products. When you are coming out with new products, you have to also, that is the company also has to come out with new products. So, there is, in other words, your strategy has to be undergoing change in the marketplace. The third compartment is clear strategy, but ineffective operations. What is this ineffective operations? So, you had a good strategy, but your operations of the company are not helping you to implement this strategy. So, no better example than most of the public sector undertakings in the country. Many times they have a clear strategy, but ineffective operations. When they have ineffective operations, it has sometimes worked in the past in the short run, but increasing competition makes success doubtful in the future. Example for that could be this Mysore soaps and detergents. In this, now it is called Karnataka soaps and detergents, started during the time of the Maharaja by Sir M.V. only. Then what is the type of product? Known for its very well known product, the Mysore sandal soap. Many players came into the market and started imitating this Mysore sandal soap, but they could not imitate. So, even to this day you find that Mysore sandal soap is sustaining in the marketplace, but the number of players who are coming out with different soaps. So, you have a different sandal soaps in the form of Suntour, so many other things. So, giving you this. When you have such a cutthroat competition, to hold on in the marketplace, you have a strategy. The strategy is to come out with sandal soaps. This strategy was formulated at the time of the inception of the company. Kindly note, it has been several decades now. When it has been several decades, this strategy needs in the present day immediate revisiting, that is by the company, to come out with different products. So, this still the company is still making a mark, because the product was at that point of time introduced by a scientist, a chemical scientist, who was sent specially for bringing out this formula, and this scientist incidentally was also from the Indian Institute of Science. Okay. So, he went and came out with this formula for coming out with this sandal soap. It has held on to this market sway. What do you mean by held on to this market? So, this market has been so many vacillations, still this product has held on, okay. Still it is having a market share. Now, it is time for the company to look at portfolio diversifications also, in order to prove itself in the market. The fourth compartment, very clear, unclear strategy and ineffective operations have meant failure in the past and will be so in the future. So, you did not have a good strategy, your operations were also not effective. So, it meant failure in the past and will be so in the future. So, many of the public sector undertakings in the country, when they started having competition, many of them wound up shop. Why they wound up shop? Because of this fourth quadrant here. This fourth quadrant here tells you that you should have a clear strategy, and you should also have good effective operations to sustain in this marketplace. Okay. We stop here. We continue in the next class.